We've all hit that absolute brick wall in engineering, right? The kind of bottleneck that just seems, well, mathematically and physically impossible to get past. In this explainer, we're going to tackle exactly how you can shatter those walls using the Solve TRIZ digital workbench, and specifically its core methodology, a real beast known as ARIZ.
Let's start in the foothills, so to speak. We all know those standard, super accessible TRIZ principles like merging. And hey, it's great for optimizing workflows, combining operations, getting things to run in parallel. But what happens when basic tools like this just aren't cutting it? What do you actually do when the contradiction in your system is so baked in, so deep, that standard principles basically just bounce right off?
Well, here's our trail map for today's climb. First, we'll look at the peak of innovation, ARIZ. Second, exactly when should it be used? Third, critical pre-workbench preparation. Fourth, the 9-step solution path. And finally, number 5, patent and value creation. Let's dive in.
Section 1, the peak of innovation, ARIZ.
So looking at the TRIZ tools hierarchy, you're going to see a very sharp, deliberate contrast. Down at the base, you've got your 40 principles. These are those quick, maybe 15 to 30-minute exercises that give you routine level 1 or 2 inventions. Good, but not groundbreaking. But up at the absolute peak, that's where ARIZ-85C lives. This is a deep, intense 4 to 8 hour process. It specifically attacks hidden, multi-layered problems to produce those super elusive level 3 to 5 inventions. Literally, this is where major industry breakthroughs happen.
Moving on to Section 2, when exactly should this be used?
Now, because ARIZ is so incredibly intense, we really have to act as strict gatekeepers here. Honestly, 92% of problems don't actually need it. To even earn the right to start this 8-hour climb, you have to meet 4 criteria simultaneously. 1. The contradiction matrix failed. 2. Standard solutions were insufficient. 3. The problem has major strategic value or huge patent potential. And 4. The contradiction is completely hidden or multi-layered. Trust me on this one, using ARIZ on a simple problem is like using a sledgehammer on a pushpin. It's just going to drain your sanity and waste your time.
You really have to think of this as a giant do not enter sign for certain types of work. ARIZ handles physical contradictions masterfully. You know, those incredibly frustrating if X improves, Y totally breaks kind of design locks. But on the flip side, it should never touch business or organizational processes, pure software architecture, or just simple single parameter optimization. Actually, scratch that, it's more than just a rule of thumb. It's absolutely crucial. ARIZ is a precision engineering tool built strictly for level 3 and 4 R&D.
Which brings us to Section 3, critical pre-workbench preparation.
Okay, this right here is the blank mini-problem pre-writing template. And here is the golden rule. You absolutely have to fill this out on paper first. Ask yourself, what does the system actually do? What specific components are in conflict? What's the good part? And what's the bad? By doing all of this offline, your very first step in the digital workbench is going to take like 5 minutes. If you try to figure this out on the fly inside the software itself, oh man, you are going to spend hours doing really frustrating rewrites. Don't do it.
You also need some seriously strict environmental discipline to survive this process. We're talking working in 2-hour blocks max, because honestly, the mental fatigue is very real. Crucially, and I mean this, turn off your phone and disable every single notification. A 5-minute ping from a random email can completely wipe out a critical thought process. Keep all your technical schemas and patents ready right there on your desk, and ideally, you want to tackle this in a 2 to 3 person team just to keep your concepts grounded and solid.
All right, Section 4, the 9-step solution path.
Diving right into step 1.5, we run into the infamous X element. The X element has one job. It must eliminate the harm and preserve the useful function, without adding any extra complexity. But listen, here is the ultimate psychological trap. You cannot name it. You absolutely must avoid projecting a preconceived solution. The very second you think, oh, the X element is obviously just a rubber valve, you've literally ruined the entire algorithm. You have to force your mind to stay completely open and leave that element totally undefined.
Moving along to step 3, we hit the ideal final result, or IFR. This states that the system performs the useful function completely by itself without adding new tools, using only existing resources. I know, it sounds mathematically impossible, right? But setting this completely impossible target is exactly what points your brain toward a high-level breakthrough. It essentially forces you to maximize exactly what is already right there in front of you.
Speaking of what's already there, that brings us back to the substance field resource inventory in step 2. You need to narrow down your working zone to the absolute smallest physical space possible and define the exact operating times. So T1 before the conflict, T2 during, and T3 after. But the real magic happens in the inventory. Don't just list 4 or 5 obvious physical parts. You need to aim for 15 to 25. And you've got to include those invisible free resources, things like waste heat, system vibration, ambient air, or even empty space itself.
And this leads perfectly to ARIZ-'s most powerful strategic pivot. When a physical contradiction is just a total dead end at the macro level, like when the machine as a whole simply cannot do what you need it to do, the breakthrough is almost always hiding down at the micro level. You're going to find your answer by altering the particles, the molecules, or the localized fields. It's a real game changer.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Patent and Value Creation.
40%. Let that sink in. A well-executed ARIZ session reduces a patent attorney's application preparation time by a massive 40%.
So here is the actual ROI on all that grueling discipline we just talked about. The output you get from this workbench provides the exact text needed to prove the inventive step to examiners, which, let's face it, is where most applications usually go to die. Step 8 directly translates into your classic main and dependent claim hierarchies. Because your documentation is now virtually bulletproof, you're reducing those tedious inventor-attorney meetings from 3 or 5 to just 1 or 2. I want to leave you with a rather staggering reality check from TRIZ master Yuri Salamatov. He notes that 95% of people simply cannot finish ARIZ, but of the few who actually do, 80% get a major patent out of it. So the real success rate is just 4%. But that 4%, it changes the market entirely. The digital workbench is sitting right there. The tools are ready for you. So what does this all mean for us? Well, the only real question left is, do you have the discipline to be in that 4%?